All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to last week's fights. My name is Thinker St. James, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, the Ohio player, and the man on last week's fights, voted most likely to get the words "free spirit" tattooed on his neck, Chase Parton. How you doing, brother?
God, I tell you, I was feeling like shit on Saturday.
Yeah,
but I'm
better now.
For Monday. Better
Yeah.
now, I swear to you guys. Better now. I re-caught up with the fights that I missed. I'll tell you about the one that I really, but for the most part, I remember everything in the prelims, and then I went to sleep. And then I woke up, I remember waking up and seeing Kyle and Jared going, but I was done at that point. There was no waking back up. So
For sure.
I missed it all. Came back on Monday. Just watched it a little bit ago, so I'm fresh. I'm ready to go on this.
Absolutely,
on this, so.
Right on. Yeah, and so get some of the plugs out of the way early. We both do individual watch along, so obviously Chase was not on his. But if you're going to see Chase Parton and you don't see him, you can always come here to the Yama channel, and myself and Vitz King are generally watching every single card, so you will have someone to hang out with for these fights. But we both have seen all of them at this point. We both are pretty fresh with it. I was actually just rewatching a couple myself before we started too, so I am also fresh on it. We got a whole bunch of fights to go over. This is UFC Fight Night, Cannonier versus Borralho, and there were some good fights on this one. What did you think of the card overall?
It was actually so good. Maybe I'm just feeling like that because I missed it, of course, but man, really fun card. I remember having a really tough, even being in a terrible fucking mood. But then when I watched them earlier, I was like still regretting that I missed this. The highlights were good, and I'm sad that I had to have this ruined for me, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it's I mean, that it happens. I mean, that's just a normal part of life or whatever, but as long as you got to get back and check them out after the fact, and sometimes it's actually nicer to watch them after the fact, in my opinion, because then it's like, you're kind of just able to relax. You can watch it at your own pace. You don't have to deal with all of the downtime that happens when there's knockouts and stuff like what we were having in the first fight we'll talk about here in a second. But so, there's pros and cons to it, because there have been times where I've had to miss a card or two, and then I'll pick it up on Sunday, and the streams are pretty chill for those. So, there's merit to it. But as long as you saw all of them, we are ready to rock over here. Just so you know, if you are new to the stream, we are going to go over every single fight that was on the card. And then afterwards, we're going to be going over some of the fights from the Contender series as well. So we got a packed show today. If you were talking about anything in the chat that isn't related to any of the fights that we're talking about at the time, we'll put that to the side and we'll come back to it at a later time. But let's start off with the first fight on the card. So is it pronounced Tong Wang or is it's spelled Kong
I heard,
Wang?
I
Yeah.
heard, I don't know. I remember thinking that like I had this, thing. I was like, oh, in China, I guess the C is a T sound. So I agree. The Tong is what I heard them say.
Yeah, or at least
But
for her name specifically. But yeah, that's just something, with all the names of all the different countries, it's always hard to keep up with what's pronounced what way. But we'll go with Tong. So Tong Wang. I mean, we're gonna have to remember the name now after her
yeah,
performance. Tong Wang versus Victoria Leonardo. What a knockout for women's flyweight. How about it?
yeah, it's kind of crazy to think that it's a secret at this point. China is feeding these women something that I need because wow, I'm so mad that I doubted her. I'm not even gonna say that I doubted her, but I was skeptical. Come on, women's flyweight, minus 15 million. It
Mm-hmm.
can't always go great. And fuck,
Well,
man, Jesus.
yeah. So, what I wanted to say about that is you might remember a guy from a previous card that we talked about not too long ago. His name is Tom Nolan. Do you recall that name? So, yeah, we were talking
Yeah,
about that guy, Tom Nolan, and the ridiculous price tag that was attached to him being actually on my book. Same numbers for until the line closed up, but coming in early as a minus 1400 for Nolan and a minus 1400 for Tong Wang over here, and talk about a performance that lived up to the price tag for once. Nolan, not so much. Wang over here, very much so. I mean, she exactly did what you're supposed to do when the price tag is that high. I mean, coming out there, really not. First of all, Leonardo's striking was all over the place, sloppy. Like, I mean, she just wasn't looking great to begin with. She kind of looked like she was just throwing things out just to throw them out. But it was early in the fight. So, I mean, there might have been time for her to feel it out. She might have been trying to gauge distance. A whole lot of stuff that can be happening at the very start of the fight, pretty much. Because, well, maybe it wasn't like the beginning of the round, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was still early in the fight in total if the fight had gone longer. She was just kind of flailing, throwing things out there. But Wang staying nice and composed, doing everything that she needed to do, and landing a fucking bomb to start this card off. Really, really nice.
yeah. 2 shots on a Saturday night is what Brendan Fitzgerald called it, man. It was really exactly what it was. Listen, if Alex Pereira made the story, she's following that fucking origin because, man, she's coming for Shevchenko, man. I don't know what to tell you guys.
Yeah, so that's also something to note. This was Tong's debut in the organization. She has a win over Valentina Shevchenko in kickboxing. So, like you said, Alex Pereira is Israel Adesanya. The storyline syncs up there. I mean, that's certainly a way to get your name on the map in the organization. She was talking about in her post fight about how she was upset being on the first fight of the card. It's like, I mean, you kind of have to do that for somebody who's, this kind of early on. But like, I always wonder about that, like why they stay in kickboxing or another discipline before coming over to MMA for so long, if that's what she's capable of. But maybe she just needed to get the skills up. She wanted to, test herself a little bit before she came over. Whatever the reason is, she came in and got a very, very nice win. And again, going back to Leonardo, though, I mean, I think that it's worth noting over here that she was 9-6 coming into this fight. So record's not exactly great, but Alex Pereira, again, I think his first fight was against somebody who had a pretty negative record as well. So, so it's like they could be setting her up, and that's fine. I mean, like, if she's doing that, then the hot shotting makes a little bit of sense. Anytime that you're getting hot shotted, you always still have to prove. You know what I mean? You can't they're not going to be able to hot shot you up to into a ranked position without you proving it along the way, even if you get a can or two to start it out.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I want to make a point. I know it doesn't lead off anything that you're talking about, but the antics, right? If you're going to do the Joker shit, which is really funny after the fact because she really fucking knocks her out, man. But if you're going to have the antics and you're going to be that, personality, man, you got to have these performances because she fucking did that shit. And then she's doing the whole smiles and, it's bravo, man. Bravo, Tong.
So the funny thing about that for me was that I didn't actually see the pictures from it like beforehand. I just saw in the Discord y'all saying that she was the Joker.
No, me too. No, yeah,
yeah,
when North said the Joker, I was like, what the fuck
yeah.
is he
What are you talking
talking
about?
about? Like,
Then I
yeah.
finally did see the pictures. Like, oh, she went full Joker for the weigh-ins. Okay, so all right, fair enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, again, all of this stuff is making a splash. She's obviously trying to come in and do exactly what she's doing here. Get people talking about her, get her name in the conversation, and she wants it quicker than later. That's why I mentioned what she had said in the post fight. It's like she's coming in here getting a knockout like that, and then she's already saying, I need to be higher. I need, and Bisping even had to bring her back down to earth. He's all right, one step at a time, but that's a great first step,
And I believe Dana did give her a bonus after
He
the
did,
fact.
yes. After the fact, he gave her a bonus. Yeah. So that was nice too. And look, I mean, obviously
Well deserved.
now,
Let me say that.
well, anytime that you have knockout power as a woman, you're automatically in a different echelon, in my opinion, when it comes to the women's divisions. If there are so many extremely technical and proficient strikers in the women's divisions, there are very extremely proficient wrestlers and grapplers, when it comes to the women. But knockout power is something that really sets you apart. So the eyes are on her now. We'll see what they give to her next. She said that she wants to fight. I think that there's a card coming up in Macau. Is that what she said? I might have misheard that, but yeah, I don't know if that's actually true or not. She might have just been throwing that out, or maybe it just hasn't been talked about very much yet. But either way, if she's wanting to get right back in there and do it again, if she can keep doing it, then the conversation gets a lot more spicy. So congratulations to her. Nice performance.
I mean, but you do bring up, if Wei Li's gonna fight ever again, it's probably gonna be on a card that includes Miss Tong here. So
it could, yeah, absolutely. Also, one other thing to note that I had in the notes was second fastest knockout in women's flyweight history. So
yep, I did see that too. Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, making minor history over here as well. It's all looking good. Everything, all of the things that you want to happen in your debut, especially as the crazy favorite that you were, all came true for her. So this is one of those stories where everything fell into place, all the pieces lined up, and she got it how she wanted it.
I will say last point on that, because you brought it up, and I think it's interesting to note. It felt really long of a fight for it to be the second quickest knockout. It just makes you think the men, that's like the 420th quickest knockout.
Right, for sure. So, but that's the point about women with knockout power in general. You know what I mean? That's why I always, anytime that I see a knockout in women's MMA, I'm always like, that's a name to remember, because if they can do that, then really, you have to think about it in terms of also what gets them to the knockout, right? Her movement was fine. Again, Leonardo was just she wasn't the greatest level of competition, so we got to see her tested against somebody who is a little bit more technically sound, but she was doing what she needed to do properly, moving out of range, staying where she wanted to be, landing a couple of decent little, pitter patters to get everything ready and situated, felt the distance, landed it heavy when she needed to land it heavy. So, really, even if it took a little bit of time, that's the game for the ladies right now. If we're talking about a Cyborg or somebody like that, where they might come in, heavier and pummel, it's going to be a little bit more of a feel out. It's very rare that you have women that go in super guns blazing and crazy overpower their opponents, but it does happen, but it's just not as common. But they don't need to necessarily when you're doing what she did. So, it might take a little bit longer, but the end result is still the same.
Yeah, no, for sure. Facts. Shout out her, man. She really did her thing. And I'm
absolutely.
And
watching. Especially for a debut. Yeah, same. So good stuff. Name to keep an eye on for sure. And actually, one other thing just before we move on is I'm going to be interested to see what she comes in as when it comes to her next betting line. Is she going to stay that crazy favorite? It depends on who they put her up against, I guess.
No, I think she's going to be one of those people that's going to stay a crazy favorite until they lose. Like Bo Nickel, you're never going to see him be a minus 200. If he's going to be a favorite, he's a fucking favorite.
That's kind of what I'm. No, I agree. That's kind of where I was thinking as well. It's until she has, or even if she wins, until she has some stiff competition that gives you some pause. because right now there's nothing to go on that would give you any kind
Yeah.
of negative impression. It's what you always have to keep in mind with performances like that. We've said that for a couple of people who get quick knockouts, you got to see them against people who are going to give them a bigger test. But for right now, yeah, I think you're right. I think that until she either loses or has a very serious level of competition that gives her some adversity, she's going to probably keep that price tag for sure.
Yeah, because like Tom Nolan now,
Mm-hmm.
he probably not gonna be no -800.
Legit.
So
Correct. Absolutely. No, you are not wrong. And if, in fact, for the parallel, we got to see what his line is. We'll have to make a note of that next time
yeah,
that he's on a card.
yeah,
The Sigma
and
in charge. What's up, man?
yeah, Cavalante. Honestly, going on to this next one, how do you say her
Sure.
last name? Go ahead, say it.
Cavalcante.
Cavalcante. Okay, and Josiane. Uh,
Josini Nunez.
well, anyway, to get into that one,
Sure.
Cavalcante looked really good. She looked nice.
You
I
think
thought that was
so?
a good performance by her. Yeah, for
I don't know,
sure.
man.
Maybe I was sick and delusional. But no, Nunes to Andrade, I was thinking it. I obviously was. Like that build, that Brazilian tank build is very common, and it normally does at least decent in the sport that we are. But like I thought Cavalcante was fine. She kept the distance, she played the range game. She obviously didn't want to get, knocked out because this is a fucking tank, again, fire hydrant build. And I thought she did fine. I mean, I don't see nothing too crazy with her.
Um, yeah, I mean, when we were watching it, we were saying that Nunez was more active. Cavalcante was moving nicely to counteract the distance close. I mean, like that's the biggest point I think about Nunez right now is that she's too stubby. The build that you were talking about is just kind of too stubby to get in
Yep.
or to throw at far range rather. Like she needs to get in. She like Cavalcante was doing a decent job of getting out of the way of that. She was circling nicely. Nunez needs to cut her off more. Like that would have been like a better way to get up a little bit farther. But I mean, when she was landing, I thought she was landing the heavier shots, the heavier strikes. I mean, that was the impression that we got. It was a split decision. We said that it was a bit of a petty theft. We said that it might have been 2-1 Nunez. I mean, that's what it was on the assessment on the night. So
I think to note is that yes, Nunez is not Andrade. She's not even Cachueta
no,
or Lemos.
yeah,
Like,
definitely not.
She's not anything like them. Her striking is very, very bad. Like it's just throwing overhands and hooks and just trying. I mean, in this matchup, it's hard for her. Again, the size was really bad for her. She's just short and stubby. It's really hard for her to get inside, especially if she's not doing advanced combinations when she's just doing the same thing. Sigma, he's saying all she did was go left. Like Nunez wasn't catching on to
That
like
is
cut her
true.
off until very late in the fight. And then by the time she did, it's like, well, it was like 30 seconds left in the second round. And then the third round, maybe you can argue. But I want to point out, if you check at the scorecards, there was a 30-27 to each of them.
Yeah,
So,
that is pretty crazy. That's what I mean. So I think it was a pretty close fight overall because of all the factors that we're talking about. I do agree that the fight IQ was a little bit low because of the fact that she was only circling the one direction. She probably could have cut her off a little bit more. And also the other thing too, and this is a note that is going to come up over the course of this, like neither of them, and Cavalcante, I guess, wants to stay standing more. I guess she kind of leans on her striking pretty heavily, but like Nunez, like because of being the shorter, stubbier fighter with like a lower center of gravity, like she could have muscled her on the cage at times. Like there were times when towards the end when Cavalcante was slowing down a little bit, where it's like go in. I mean, like look, I'm not trying to say that I want to see a clinch heavy fight. Obviously, I'd prefer some aggressive striking and effective striking. But if you're not having the success that you want in that field, like you got to switch it up a little bit. I mean, I think that that's a note for both of them to an extent, is that like, and we'll talk about some of these other fighters who switched it up a little bit better, where if one thing is not working, try something else out. Always have a game plan in mind, but if one game plan is not working, got to switch to plan B at some point, or it ends up getting away from you, like I think it did for Nunez, because I do think that she might have taken 2 rounds, and if it was that close that each of them got a 30-27, that other judge could have been swayed if things had been a little different.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it is one of those ones that it wasn't much to go off of because they weren't too like aggressive in the moment. Like there was spurts of it, but there wasn't anything too crazy going on. And a 30-27 going both ways. I mean, it's just a hard one to judge at that point. Like even the professionals don't even fucking know. So
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, it's like it's one of those ones too, and we talk about this all the time on the stream now, and we were talking about it on the watch along too, where it's like the numbers you can go through and play the numbers game, and you know, add up every single little piece of information that you want. But it's like at the end of the day, what is the actual tale of the fight? And it was a little, it was close. It was definitely a tight fight. So, you know, not a terrible performance on either side, but also not really a great one for either as well. Like that's also one of the notes that I had is that, you know, even if it was a petty theft or not, regardless of you know how you feel about that part of it, it's an unfortunate thing that it doesn't move the needle really for either of them. Because on the one hand, if it is a petty theft, then now Nunes has that on the record and that's unerasable. And on the other one, it's like if it was legitimately a win for Cavalcante, it wasn't like an over the top great win to be like, oh, she's next up, especially with a 7-1, you know?
Yeah, true. Yeah, true. I don't think. See, she didn't look terrible. But like you're saying, this wasn't a performance that makes you think that she needs higher competition.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
So, you know, not a needle mover.
It was interesting.
But yeah, I mean, it wasn't a bad fight. It was fine.
I agree.
Yeah. So, all right. Moving on to Vyacheslav Borralho versus James Yontop, not James, James from Peru.
Yeah, I remember we had a discussion about that in the chat. I was like, I just learned that in Peru the J is an H. So
well,
there you
that's
go.
Spanish in general, my friend.
Oh, well, there you go. But anyway,
I know you're from Ohio. It's not as common up there. I get you, brother.
Anyway, this was a good fight. It was fun. The striking was damn near, you know, even. And I thought Borshchev won in the moment, but James whatever you want to say, my bad, James. Damn. You're not bad, man. You're not bad, but you're not Chase Hooper's son. So
I don't know. I mean, bro, we might be feeling some different ways on this one. We're definitely not in lockstep because I think that Yontop is slightly bummy, bro. I mean, you know, I'm seeing Sigma in the chat saying don't cut him. I don't think that he necessarily needs to be cut, but he needs to really show out in a fight. Like, I mean, because Borralho, you said it just there. He's coming off of a complete trouncing by Chase Hooper, who himself has leveled up his game. I mean, you got to, you know, call a spade on that one. I mean, this kid is starting to really come into his own. That's fine, but Borralho is the type of guy that like is fine for a person at Yontop's level where it's like, okay, if you get a nice win over this guy, maybe there's something to start building up some momentum. I don't see it in him personally.
Yeah, he's just one of those dudes, and we'll talk about it with the next matchup too. You know, he's just one of those guys that he's just gonna walk in there with a chin, and he doesn't really offer much other than just like he can punch and get punched.
Yeah.
So,
well, and we'll definitely talk about that in the next one too. Yeah.
and you know, and at least with the next one, right? At least with the next guy, we'll talk about it. But with James, it's like I don't know. It's like I can't remember too many big moments that happened in this one. But I just remember them hitting each other a lot, and there just wasn't much else going on besides just hitting. So
yeah, it was. There were some effective exchanges. I think Borralho got the better of them for sure. I think that this decision was fine. The one big moment that I did want to mention was an unfortunate one, and this is exactly why I am so I take the regulation of the sport so seriously. Why I'm so on top of things when it comes to the rules and with referees and judges and the commissions, all this stuff. So in this fight, right, Borralho gets an eye poke. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Sigma's beating me to it. Borralho gets an eye poke. Mark Smith's the referee. Mark Smith, generally one of the better ones for sure. You know, I mean, he's had his moments here and there. He actually had a couple on this one that were a little wonky, but this is the one.
Rewatching this and the Contender series, Mark Smith did a really good job. I just want to say, I want to put that in there. So I do think really good. I think high of this guy.
And and I am always the first one to say the referee's job is one of the most thankless and hardest jobs in all of sports, period, across the board, in my opinion. When it comes to MMA refereeing, you're talking about split second decisions. When it comes split second motions, it comes to very much like what you're able to see at what angle. I mean, it's an extremely hard job. It's, people are very hard on them, and they're only extremely vicious on them when it's bad. You know what I mean? Like, you don't hear about, except for guys like us who will give them the credit that they deserve. When the time comes, you only hear negative things from the fans. So credit to the referees, and even the ones that are on the worst, quote unquote, worst side of it are still, in this day and age, better than, what you could have. So, I mean, like, I want to be fair to them, but this one right here was an unfortunate situation all around, because what happened was Borralho gets his eye poked, and Smith does not react in time. I guess he didn't realize or didn't see it. I mean, he definitely didn't see it happen, and then didn't react to the eye covering. It was a legitimate eye poke, so, fair that was the case, because actually in the Cavalcante fight, she had gotten poked in the, or she claimed to get poked in the eye, but it was actually a punch. So that can happen too. That's yet another factor in the referee's, equation that you have to keep in mind. Sometimes these fighters aren't always correct in their body language as well. So Smith is a little bit late to the eye poke because of Borralho waiting for Smith to stop the action. Yontop lands a serious bomb. Now, because it was still in action, the judges have nothing but the necessity to count that as well. So my point with saying all of that is that these kinds of things, like, it is such a split second thing when it comes to the refereeing, and they got to be as split second as it necessitates because of things like that. The eye poke stop was so late that punch landed, and what are the judges supposed to do? Be like, oh, well, he was, he was supposed to be stopped, but he wasn't, so I'm not going to count it? No, it's if the fight is still in action, you got to count it. So, that definitely, I think, swung that round in his favor. It's just something to note. In general, when it comes to the way that it's regulated, these split second decisions on the referee's part have to be that quick, because something like that can happen. And we saw what happened to Strikas Dumas in that same situation.
Yeah, true. Absolutely. Yep. 100%.
So, yeah. So I'd say, a big moment for an unfortunate reason. 316 Immortal, what's up, brother?
And so, I mean, I don't think I have much more to say. And once you brought up the eye poke and the illegal strike, well, I guess it was technically illegal, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, legal after the fact.
Am I remembering it being like towards the back of the head too, or no? Is that
no? It was on. I mean, it was side of the head. It was just because Borralho was turning away. He was covering his eye and kind of going to the side. But I think it was a legal strike. It's just unfortunate that it landed. Period.
But I feel like when I was watching it, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like Mark said stop, but he didn't like step in, like, so it was like a weird moment where James just like didn't stop. Like, I mean, the ref didn't step in. He said stop, but he didn't like stop it. I don't know. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong.
Yeah, but I mean, again, it's very quick, so I'd have to go back and like watch it frame by frame or whatever, see the actual sequence of it. But just the fact that it happened as it did, it's like, if you're gonna stop it, you got to stop it quickly and recognize that. And then also, I don't remember if it was Mark Smith. It probably wasn't, since it was just the fight before. But if it's not actually an eye poke, like in the Cavalcante fight, then you got to start that thing right immediately back up. You know what I mean? Like, get the confirmation from the replay. That's what the replay is for. There's an entire video on this channel about the ineffectiveness of the replay system. This sort of plays into that a little bit.
I just remembered. I don't know if it was this fight or not this fight, if it was this card or if it was on the Contender series from last week. Somebody got poked in the eye, and they were like, yo, it was a punch, let's go, you're back. And like, it was something like that.
Yeah, I think that was a God, why is his name escaping me right now? I'm in the moment. The English referee. It was I think that was him, because he does that. Like, he'll make those calls real quick. God, why his name is escaping me off the top of my head here. One very, very controversial.
Mergliotti.
No, not Mergliotta. The English dude with the fortune tattooed on the arm.
fuck, I don't know these dudes' names well enough.
Yeah, come on, man. This is killing me right now.
All
Ah,
right. We could take a little moment. Go ahead. Let's figure it out.
yeah, for sure. Because I
It's
mean,
a common ref.
yeah, absolutely.
Beltron,
No, not Beltron.
Herzog,
Nope.
not
Uh,
Mark Smith, and not Mergliotti. Oh,
uh, why? This is so embarrassing.
yeah.
Mark Goddard. Jesus
Mark.
Christ.
Oh, we're dumb.
Yeah, I
We
know.
are
Yeah,
dumb.
yeah, for real.
No,
That's
no, I don't think it was Mark. I don't think it was Mark.
well,
That's why
was
I'm naming all
Mark
the people
will.
that wasn't Mark. But
Well,
you
fair
are
enough.
right
But I
with
mean,
what you're saying.
Mark will also do that, I guess is my point.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean that's, if they make that call in the moment, again, it's you're talking about such split second things happening at very rapid succession. So it's like I understand if they don't get it exactly in the moment, but if the replay shows it, like that, they need the replay to be fast. All of this needs to be fast. That's I guess what my point is. And it's tough. This is why it's so case by case. It's so dependent on the person that's making the call. What they see, what they interpret. Like it's a very tough job for everybody involved. That's why you need the best of the best to be doing it.
No, absolutely.
So yeah. Anyway, so that's just a little detour on that fight, but decent fight overall. And I'm glad that Borralho was able to come back and get his victory after that, because I mean that shot could have been worse. I mean, he's a tough guy, so obviously he made it through all of that damage from Chase Hooper. So obviously he's tough, but that shot, especially being, in defensive, I mean, not having his defense up, thinking that he was going to get it stopped and then taking it, kind of getting blindsided by the shot. It could have been a lot different, and again, Cedricus Dumas is a great example of what happens when nothing, when it doesn't go right.
My last point on this fight is
Sure.
that Borshchev called Chase Hooper out for a rematch. So
well, I mean, that's
he ain't getting that shit. I'll tell you that.
A, he's not getting that. B, he does not want that. He might have said he wanted that, but he does not want that.
Yeah, true shit, man. Jesus Christ.
It was a boring night of fights. I thought these fights were pretty good.
Yeah, no, these were pretty fun. This one I thought was so fun. And I want to make the point. Well, okay, so first, Zachary Reese and Jose Daniel Medina, which was my dark horse of this card. Okay, and let me start off by saying the weight cut looked good. It looked good, man. You could have maybe went down another cut, but you're not going to drop 2 classes before your debut or whatever. So, it looked fine. The skills, none. There's nothing. I made the joke, and I seriously keep going back to it. It's this dude's weapon wheel had only emotes. It was so crazy to think about. Nothing in his inventory, no bag. There was just nothing. It's just get punched and laugh and do these moves, and it's so fucking crazy to me. And to end my point, Zach Reese might just be that fucking guy. And I want to make the point, and I know this is not competition that you want to gloat about, oh, he just beat up on the dude who doesn't block punches, right? Zachary Reese came in here after never finishing a first round, okay? Comes in, finishes the third round, fresh as hell after putting a masterclass beating on this dude. And he looked good doing it, I thought. I think this dude's on to something. And he looks huge for this weight class too, by the way.
Yeah, that is true. He is big, man. I mean, it's kind of crazy because he's not big bulk wise. He's not a super stocky guy, but he is tall and lean and fucking he just looks imposing for sure, especially against Medina. And one thing I would push back on is that I do think that he gassed a little bit in the third round. I mean, it wasn't an over the top. Obviously, he was able to still control. He was doing fine, and I mean, Medina was just letting himself take so many fucking hard shots. I think he gassed himself out just by kicking his ass. That was the note in the chat during the watch along. The thing that I saw here was that I do think that Reese could be the real deal a little bit. Medina is a tough dude for nothing right now. I mean, it's really great that, I call it the Felicia Spencer syndrome. It's great that you're able to take so much damage, but if you don't dish out any of your own, you are just a punching bag, and that is not great. And Bisping was even talking about that on the commentary, saying, you don't want to be remembered as the tough dude who lost his fight because he took 8,000 punches. That's absolutely the case here. this is my point though with Zachary Reese. Little slight gassing out in the third, possibly. Is Zachary Reese the white Hamzat?
He
Ah,
listen. I was gonna make the point. His wrestling is like really, really good for like how scary he is punching. Like you would think that this dude, massive dude, really able to move. Like I was talking about earlier, Kaio's ability to how tall he is and like how massive and like how quick he can be. Zachary Reese is also one of these dudes who is just agile, like, and
it's
he's
true.
scary to mess with. Like when he gets wrestling, he's got some grappling that you wouldn't think that he's got when you look at him, because he does look like the white trash fucking, hillbilly. But this dude's really fucking good, guys. He knows how to punch, he knows how to kick, he knows how to wrestle. Like, what else do you need right now?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, he's extremely well-rounded. That's completely true. And really, like you saw him doing what he does in this fight as well. He was throwing in that first round like he wanted to finish in the first round. So I mean, that is credit to Medina, for being able to take all of that, because a lesser fighter would have been out of there in that first round. So a fine display of his skills there too. It was nice to see that he's able to go 3 rounds. Yeah, I mean, I think that there is definitely something there with him. He's extremely well rounded. Striking is just really, really nice. The exact appropriate amount of power on the shots. We talk about that as well. He's not loading up. He's not throwing soft. He's throwing with exactly the just right. He's got the Goldilocks right there. It's the exact right amount. And his wrestling is on point as well. I mean, they were talking. I saw that tweet that you posted about the that submission attempt that he had.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, that there was nothing doing there, but I give him credit for maintaining control in a position that was not traditional. It was not in his favor at the time. That he was out at a weird angle with his body on the ground, still was able to control. That shows a level of dedication to the motions that you're going through in order to maintain the dominance in the fight. So, I mean, I didn't see anything bad from Reese in this fight.
No, and to go off Immortal's point, I don't know. There's probably a strong statistic that they're Mexican most of the time, but there is a build from the Contender series of just people who are punching bags, and Dana loves them. He loves them because I'm seeing now that he'll throw them against, he'll try to see, this is the dude who knocks everybody out in the first round. Here's my stone wall Mexican fighter right here. I mean, he's not Mexican. He's
I was going to say, he's
one, but,
point to make, he's Bolivian, but
he's Bolivian, but to Immortal's point, like, I can see Dana's vision. It's like, we're going to see just how tough you are. We're going to put you against the real fucking killers. Like, I don't care about the Contender series where you're going to get beat for 3 rounds or whatever. Medina, you can take a masterful beating. Like, it is crazy to me, but you're already 11-4. So like, you can only take like 1 more before, like, why are you here? And I can see that coming because, Doc, there's nothing there. It's so empty. The magician's hat, it literally just has nothing. Like, that's so crazy to me that he's in the fucking league. But
I mean, emoting is all that he had. You're exactly right. I mean, that was kind of funny, the fact that he was reacting to every single thing and basically just smiling his way through this entire fight as he's getting his entire ass kicked. But you got to be able to back that up with some effective striking of your own or wrestling or something. And he just didn't have any of it. So, we got to see if he's going to actually come out and throw some strikes going forward. It is kind of amazing based on that performance that he's in the organization at all. I'd have to go back and watch his Contender series fight to see how he did on that one and gauge off of that as well. But you're right. You get into the UFC, you're in a whole different world now, buddy.
I'm going to make a bridge for you. Okay. So Zachary Reese, we talked about his wrestling, right? And then he goes up against Cody Brundage. And I'm sure, looking back, that was probably a big upset at this point, because Zachary Reese might have had some pretty good steam. This dude looks like he was the real deal at the time, probably too. Go back to Grant Dawson. He gets chinned by Bobby Green easily, so quick. And then he comes back in his next fight and has a boring fucking wrestling match.
Yep.
Zachary Reese has made very good strides to get that slam knockout in the past. He came back, got a quick first round. He came here and put a masterful beating on this dude who has an iron face. What's next for him is really, who knows at this point. Grant Dawson, we haven't even seen this dude's name. We don't talk about that dude at all. Zachary Reese, people talk about this. I've heard him in the Discord a couple different times. I'm just saying.
For sure. No, you're exactly right. And we've talked about this in the past as well, when you have a loss or anything in your storyline, every one of these fighters has a storyline, right? Their tale of their fight, how they are outside of the cage. everything, their aura, all that stuff plays into the storyline of the fighter and their career. If you have something that is derailing it or could potentially derail it, this is the exact way to get yourself back on track. You come back, put on a masterful performance. Everybody's now going to say that the slam knockout was a fluke, and if there ever was a way to get knocked out in a fluky manner, that is certainly it. The side of the head slam is as fluky as it gets in the sport, even though there were 2 in a row on that card when it happened. But regardless, if you have something that is creating a snag in your storyline, you rewrite the narrative, and that is exactly what Zachary Reese did in that fight.
I'm not going to speak too soon, but I remember watching, and there was a note like Kaya was like, the new age middleweight or whatever. And like Zachary Reese might not be too far off if we're starting to look down. Like, this dude's really good, man. I want to give him some praise because I've been hating a lot. And he is the real deal. And by the time I start liking him, he'll come out here and lose. But like, for right now, flowers.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's the type of kind of pattern here where he now, 8-1, still somewhat early in the game as far as, records go. Still a great record to have. He gets one more fight, maybe 2 against some higher level guys going forward and can continue to put on performances like he did there. I don't see any reason why, that he can't move up in a major way going forward. He just has to keep consistent and not get, any kind of fluky knockouts anymore. Let that one be the only fluke in your career. And, everybody will, that's going to be one of those ones that people look back on like, man, can you believe that happened?
Yeah, 100%.
So, yeah, keep doing what you're doing, Zachary Reese. All right, moving on. And by the way, Immortal, we are both Americans from the proud US of A, unlike Jose Medina, who is from Bolivia.
Yeah.
I want to reiterate that.
Yeah, we'll reiterate that one for you. Yeah.
All right, moving on to Dennis Buzukja versus Francis Fire Marshall. What'd you think of this fight?
Okay, I'll be honest with you. I watched this one, and this was the last one where I started dozing off, right? And then I did not rewatch this one. But I can tell you that before the fight, I said, Francis Marshall looks like he's going to win this one. And then I remember being put to sleep by it. So,
well, then you probably tapped in the first round, because this actually turned out to be a pretty decent fight after there was a clinch-heavy portion of the first round. So Marshall clinches up, gets his back basically against the cage, not really doing too much with it. I'm like, you got to either use that or break and go back to the striking. But once they did break, Marshall is really technically proficient, man. I mean, he is another guy that puts a really appropriate amount of power on his shots. He moves nicely as well. I mean, I use that note over and over again about the movement, but in this fight, it's even more apparent and important because Buzukja, he was tapping him with a couple himself. It turned into a pretty good back and forth. Both guys got pretty bloodied up. There were some cuts going on both sides. Marshall really showed that, the technical fundamentals. This is what we talk about when I talk about the heavyweights all the time. When I say like guys like Taito Ivasa and the Tafa brothers need the fundamentals, they could stand to like look at some of these smaller guys like this dude and see how they move. Granted, the bigger body is of course going to make it a lot more difficult. I understand that there are different levels to it with the different weight classes, but like if you take some of the very basic elements of how Francis Marshall was conducting himself in the cage, I think that is applicable to a lot of guys who have other great skills. Like if you could move and emulate anything that he was doing, plus the knockout power, you'd have a really well-rounded heavyweight. So I just wanted to give Marshall some praise because I actually was rooting for Buzukja. I knew that he also was a pretty technically sound guy. Marshall was able to overcome it in a really nice way. So it was a good second or a good showing with also him dropping Buzukja in the second round. So
yeah, absolutely. No, I hear you.
Yeah. So it was good. Marshall getting the job done and winning on all cards made sense. It was unfortunate that Buzukja wasn't able to pick it up a little bit more. I mean, that getting dropped and being able to come back after it was pretty impressive because it did look like he might have been out for the count if he was able to get swarmed a little.
Maybe I do remember this. Yeah, I think I remember watching, thinking it could have been stopped. Maybe
I
if it
mean,
was,
it
maybe
would have been a
this isn't what
little.
I'm thinking of.
Well, I mean, the main event, of course, we'll talk about that. But yeah,
Oh
they're.
yeah, yeah, true, true.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been a little early if they had stopped it where it was. But I mean, he did go down hard, so there are other referees that might have stopped it
Yeah,
then. But yeah, I mean, so this fight, what I would say, and we'll talk about another one coming up that had a better effective version of it. But we see a lot of guys when they're in clinched up positions, whether it's one guy has the back or if they're just clinched on the cage, just pressure clinching, where you get a nice elbow off the break or, some action off of the break. That's what I really would have liked to have seen from Bazookia in this situation. Now, granted, he was being tied up from the back, so it's a little bit more difficult. But either way, if you're going to tie up like for as long as Marshall did, you really should be able to move that to the next position. It was a little early in the fight for him to be tying him up the way that he did and then not going anywhere with it after that. When they did break, it finally started to shake out a little bit. So can't fault him too much. I guess that's really the only negative note that I have is just utilize that a little bit better or just don't do it at all that early in the fight. I guess you could say that there's a case to be made that he wore him down with it a little bit. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but either way, it worked out. So all's well that ends well.
I hear you.
So, all right, I guess we can leave that one there. Good fight, though. I enjoyed that fight. Moving on. Yeah, I was seeing 316 Immortal in the chat saying that his boy Edmund sucks. I mean, I wouldn't say that he necessarily sucks, but this was not a great performance for Edmund Shabazian going up against Gerald Meerschaert.
I watched this one first earlier, and I agree that there was those fucking memes, Mirror Shark getting his ass beat and then 10 seconds later getting a sub. I thought it was a little extreme, a little exaggeratory. Like Gerald was getting his ass whooped, okay? And I do think this one should have been stopped at some points. Like there was like it was getting to a point where like
That
even
one
though
time,
he's
yeah,
like
he did
doing
get dropped.
something,
Yeah.
yeah, he was doing something, but I was still sitting here wondering, like, he's taking shot after shot after, like, it's gonna be. He's lucky that it might have been Mark Smith, where he was like, "Come on, you got to do something." Like he kept giving him warnings, and then Meerschaert would like on command, then he would do something. Like it wasn't just like he was actively defending; he was waiting for the call for the ref. Like, so that was kind of annoying, and I do get some people who might be upset about that, but. Now he did come back and get that sub. That was crazy. So shout out to him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he was taking some heavy shots. That's why I would say that I take it back that this wasn't a terrible performance for Shabazian, but I think that it was Badger in the Discord who was saying that like this was really kind of a down the line like representation of Shabazian's losses. Like he does pretty well until he gets overcome, and then it's just he's got nothing left, which is kind of crazy to think that this was, I mean, it was late in the second round. So, I mean, it wasn't exactly like, super early in the fight or anything, but, I mean, like you got to be able to go your 3 rounds, brother. I mean, it is middleweight. They are a little bit bigger weight. I'm just saying like Meerschaert is the old man at this point, against Shabazian. He's not super young anymore, but I mean, this guy has been around for a while. I mean, he was at one point being touted as like, this young, hot prospect that everybody had to keep their eye on. He's training with Ronda Rousey's team. Like there was a lot of hype around the dude. And yeah, I mean, like I said that I thought that he was coming into his own a little bit more, but you got to be able to overcome Meerschaert. I mean, like this is the level that you absolutely have to be able to overcome in order to advance yourself into a higher echelon here. So yeah, I mean, Meerschaert, I think that the technicality is still there, obviously, when it comes to actually like capitalizing on the openings, but like he looked tired after some of those shots, dude. It's a kind of amazing to me that he was able to secure the head and arm after all of the shots that he took, because right before he got dropped, was able to wrestle his way out of it, got back to the feet. Right before he ended up getting Shabazian down, he took like 2 really, really heavy shots. And I was like, damn, I'm amazed that he's even still standing off of those, and then somehow gets the takedown and somehow sinks in the submission. It's kind of amazing.
I want to say it was some body shots that hurt him too. He got like kneed or kicked right in the body and was
Yeah.
like, that was part of what dropped him, I think, too. He fell over one point for getting dropped in the body. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
thinking of
No.
the
Yeah.
Contender
No.
Series fight.
No, you are right. There were some effective knees from Shabazian as well. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I can't say that it was a terrible performance. Like, it was an unfortunate one because of what he was doing before the tides changed. You know what I mean? Like, he's
Yeah.
got to work on his cardio, to be perfectly honest. I mean, like, dude, whatever you need to do. It'd be a little bit tough, I think, for him to drop a weight, but if it would help with the cardio, maybe it might be worth exploring. Because I think he used to fight down, if I'm not mistaken. I think that he was fighting at a lower weight before. I might be wrong about that, but I think I'm not wrong. But either way, I mean, whether or not he was or wasn't, it's like if you don't have enough to overcome, because like once, if you look back at the actual finish, it's like, yeah, it was tight enough to get him to tap, but like, again, Mearshart was tired, bro. I mean, like, you got to be less tired than the guy that's going for the submission, because if you are, you can get your way out of the submission.
Yeah.
Seems like pretty fundamental stuff, you know?
We talk about it too. We talk about it too often, man. Fundamentals.
Exactly. So, yeah, and I mean, it really is unfortunate as well, because as I was saying, I was recently saying that I think that Shabazian's starting to come into his own. That's definitely going to be another setback. And 13-5, man, the losses are starting to creep up.
It's just how it goes sometimes for some of these people, man. Them candy cane records. So, and losing to Mearshart, it's like, if you're an upcoming guy, so when are we gonna see the people that put the old people out? We see it in this next fight. It's like you got to clear out the old era if you want to make your own way. So.
Exactly, absolutely. Changing of the guard happens, and we're certainly in a transitional period. This next fight that we'll talk about is definitely in line with that. One last thing on GM3 though. 12 wins at middleweight, most in the division. He has taken the record for most wins at middleweight in the UFC, surpassing Anderson Silva. So shout out to him, man. I mean, the guy is pretty legendary just off of that. Whether or not you think he's one of those. It's what I had said before this fight even started. You go back to the watch along. I was saying Mearshart's just one of those guys that figures out a way at the end. And it's like, 37-17 kind of speaks to that a little bit. It's not going to be every fight.
Charles Oliveira.
So, good for him. And now a record to boot. So congratulations to Mearshart on the win. Shabazian, work on that cardio, brother.
All right.
This one. So, yeah, Neil Magny versus Michael Morales. We talked about the changing of the guard. This is pretty well how I believe that I had said it was going to go on the last Monday stream, saying that this is going to be a big coming out party for Michael Morales. Couldn't have anticipated that it was going to go down the way that it went down, but the end result is still the same. Good Lord, Spider-Man.
Yeah, no, Michael Morales, excuse me, dude is definitely, he's built for this, and he did exactly what he needed to do against Neil Magny. Even the announcer said, he probably watched the film on his last fight, with Ian Gary or whatever, and the leg kicks, he came out and he only landed 4 of them, but that's really all he needed, because Neil Magny was switching stances and he was scared, he was checking, and oh man, I think it was maybe the first kick that Neil Magny threw, Michael Morales, he checked the fuck out of it. Like, he was checking kicks. Like, there was only 2 thrown from Neil Magny, but I'm pretty sure he checked both of them, like, really fucking well.
Absolutely.
And that's aside from him, getting the spin fucking elbow knocked down and then finishing it from the ground and pound. Like, he is the real deal. 17-0 is living up, so.
Yeah, most definitely. And what I wanted to say, too, based on the Francis Marshall fight, this is the effective way to break a clinch situation, because they really mirrored each other very, very closely. I mean, Magny was on his back. He was, just trying, to drag him down, trying to get him to make a mistake. He stayed very calm. Bazookia was doing the same thing. I mean, that up until that point, they were very similar. On the break, Morales just found and landed the most perfect spinning elbow right to the temple. Yeah. Drop Magny. Good night. No gates kept tonight. So, this is what we're talking about, the levels, because it's like, if you are able to capitalize on that, it was something as simple as a clinch break. that got him the knockout. I mean, to be able to do that, like, that is what sets you apart. I mean, those types of things, having the accuracy and the acumen to be able to land something like that, it's like that's what's going to really pull you away from the rest of the pack. And if, going back to Bazooka, it's like, if I'm not saying that you needed to do that, but if you were able to do something along those lines, or any type of capitalization, you're in a much better position going forward in the fight, as opposed to waiting, and then breaking, and then now the next thing happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think what I'll say is I'm very grateful that Neil Magny did not take Michael Morales from us. Like Mike Mallet, I'm okay with that. Not this Mike. You're not taking this one from us. This dude's on to something, I'm telling you. And he looked good, man. He looked in really good shape. He looked in full form. I don't think he looked the best out of the picks that I had, but he obviously didn't have to look like Grant to put Neil Magny out. Like, you just got to get the job done, and he did it exactly how he needed to. Took him a little long, but
yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. A little bit. Immortal, thank you very much for hanging out, brother. Appreciate you, man. So yeah, I mean, I think that the unfortunate aspect of this fight is that I liked Neil Magny as the gatekeeper. I know that might be a somewhat unconventional take, but I thought that Neil Magny was the exact appropriate gatekeeper that the organization needs. It's the guy who can win against a Mike Malott and will lose against a Michael Morales. You want that. I think that there need to be more of those. And it sucks for those guys. I mean, that's, I don't mean to be disrespectful to them by saying that, but like, as far as separating the cream of the crop, the cream rising to the top kind of thing, I want there to be Neil Magny's around so that you can see the level that these new guys are actually at. So I don't know. I mean, there was speculation in the chat about him retiring. He did not take the gloves off, so hopefully that's not going to be the case. He was pretty upset after the loss, though. I don't know, if he stays in that role and for how much longer he stays there. Does Jeff Neal overtake that position? Because I'd kind of class them the same for different reasons. Mm-hmm. It's just going to be interesting to see what happens going forward. I've always liked Neil Magny. I know, again, I know it's unconventional and it's a little bit of a breaking from the wisdom of the day, but I think that, like, there's merit to him, and I just hope that he's able to come back. Maybe if they drop him down, give him like an aging vet to to prove that he's still somebody that wants to stay around. Maybe that would be appropriate. I don't know what they're going to do with him now. It just sucks that they're in that position to be like, what do we do with Neil Magny?
I wish the UFC had a little less shame, because what if we just had Neil Magny go up against somebody else, some older guy, and it was like, whoever wins gets to continue on their contract, fuck it.
I mean, we very well might have that, even if they don't say it outright. You know what I mean? That could be the next thing for him. Either that, or they feed him to yet another, up and coming guy. And then, I mean, if, he starts adding up those losses at that point, it's it's going to be the backslide. But this is, I mean, Mike Malott was his last fight, so he was coming off a win.
Was that? No, I thought Ian Gary was after.
Was it? I thought I had looked. Am I wrong about that?
Because he beat Mike Malott, so he would have a win. Then
Malott last fight.
Oh, okay.
They talk about a candy cane. That's about as candy cane as it gets, right there.
I'll give Neil Magny this, though. He is game. I mean,
for sure.
He's racking up people that are good names to lose to, even if you are only losing to good names, if that's a weird way to say it. But, shout out to him.
Yeah. And, I just, if it's not going to be Neil Magny, I see the value in gatekeepers. And I think that it's an unfortunate position to be in as the fighter. I don't mean it in a disrespectful way to the fighters, but it's like you need those people that are going to be that level of competition before, because it really is. You talk about why they call it a gatekeeper. It's opening the door to the higher levels. And that's, Michael Morales has walked right through it. So, I like there being that, so that we see the value and the worthiness of these guys. And Morales absolutely has that. We'll just have to see who the next guy is if it's not going to be Neil Magny.
Yeah, 100%.
So, all right, let's move on to the first of two deciding fights for the Ultimate Fighter winner. This is Can Offley versus Myron Santos. I mean, this Myron Santos guy, man, we were saying it during the watch-alongs, how well-rounded he is, and talk about not letting the nerves of the big lights get to him in the finale, because he put on the exact same performance the exact same level of performance as he did against Guillermo in his last fight on the show itself.
I would like to say that I'm grateful that I'm starting to know how to pick them. I know it's obviously not a science. Everybody's got their own story and what they do different. But the fact that he came in at a favorite and I knew what he was capable of, and he came in and did exactly what he was supposed to. That knockout, oh my God. Con Offley, wow. Like, I felt it's one of those knockouts you feel bad watching, because like the soul just left, man. Like, he just like fell and he was just like frozen in time, still getting hit in the head. Like, and then the emotions of Myron, like, wow, man, that dude really, he's one of those dudes that you love to see win, like, because he really wanted it. And with the next one too, I know the next guy would have loved to have won it. He would have been crying his ass off. He would have won it probably. But this one right here, man, this was a good one. This was a really good fucking finale.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, pretty much just echoing exactly what you just said. I mean, Myron, how can you not like the guy? I mean, he's a young dude showing that he's got such a high level of skill for a guy at his level, as a guy just coming into the organization. What I had in the notes, he's so calm in the cage. He moves like a vet without being a vet. I mean, like, nothing that Offley was doing was riling him. He was not jittery at all. I mean, like, for other fighters, you might say that like he was being a little bit flat-footed at times, only because he was moving very strategically. A lesser fighter would have been flat-footed. It would have been like, oh, dude, you got to move out of the way of that. No, Myron doing exactly what he needed to do. When he needed to move, he moved. When he did not need to move, he did not move. Almost remind me a little bit of Spanish Buddy from that was just fighting Elvis Brenner. His name's escaping me off the top of my head, but the dude, it was a couple fight nights ago. Yeah, I didn't say it. I know I'm putting it on the spot again, but the point is just that, like, it's utilizing your movement when you need to, and staying calm and composed when you don't need to, and that's exactly what Myron was doing. I was very impressed with his motions. He's extremely well-rounded. I mean, he threw a flying switch knee at one point. It didn't land, but I mean, the fact that he threw it and didn't take anything back from it was like, wow. I mean, like, definitely, putting it out there. And you saw the flex of it. Like I was saying, in his fight against Guillermo, he was as well-rounded. I was like, if he can continue to do that going forward, I mean, this guy is the real deal, and he certainly proved it. He is the Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah, and watching the season through and through, keeping up with it, and actually getting to the finale, right? I do like the four people. I mean, obviously there's one that I like at least of the four, sure. But like Khan, if he would have won, that would have been really, really cool to see. I know Myron was my guy, but I'm really happy that he won. And then the next fight too, it's like, I've watched these guys. I know 10 episodes, but like, I kind of dig them more than just like the average fighter. Like, there is a story here. They do want to win, so it's nice to see, but it also sucks on the other end of it. So.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. I mean, that's why I when I did the Ultimate Fighter review last year, I reviewed the entire season episode by episode, and you become attached to these guys to a certain extent. I mean, you start knowing them a little bit more as people, and you see how much they want it and all that kind of stuff. That's why I think with the Contender series, it's a little bit easier to to break that, because it's like, you get a little bit of their story beforehand, but generally I'm almost tuning it out, because show me that I need to care. I mean, I hate to be blunt about it, but like, when you win, I will care. But with the Ultimate Fighter, you get a little bit more of a glimpse of who they are as people and all that kind of stuff. Luckily with Myron, you got a good story there. I mean, there's really nothing not to like about the guy. The dude's out here making ends meet by walking dogs to further his fighting career. He's got a young family. His wife, I believe he said his wife is pregnant. So, he's starting, to move into the next phase of his life in as a man and as a fighter as well. So, I mean, really, nothing negative about him winning at all. Great kid. Really hope for the best for him going forward. That's really the only note that I have after a performance like that is, can he replicate against the higher guys? This is going to be,
Yeah.
That's the test. As far as Khan goes, yeah, it sucks. It does suck. Absolutely. He seemed like a great guy too. All the guys this season were at really stand-up guys for the most part. I think that Turkish guy was a little weird, but other than that, I mean, like, and the drunk dude, but they're a little flex of things, but nobody, you didn't have any like villains or whatever. They were all a decent group of guys. So, it does suck for Khan. And you were not kidding about that knockout, man. I mean, the way that he went down, I said that looked like a planned demolition, when like a building just implodes all at once.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, he just fell like a sack of bricks, and unfortunate that he had to take a couple extra ones after that. But, Myron did what he, that's what you're supposed to do. So no fault there. Yeah. But yeah, so, great win for Myron, and we will see if he is able to keep that going against the higher level guys. But until then, there's your Ultimate Fighter.
I will say, just to start it off, that we rag on every episode of The Ultimate Fighter. And whether hate or love watching the process, the end at least does feel like fulfilling. Like,
Sure.
We did, there was a mystery solved, if you want to think about it, right? The end of the tale.
Sure. Yeah, most definitely. And also, I mean, like, to be clear, like, regardless of the entertainment value of what was going on in the house and the guys and all that, the fights were good this season for the most part. I mean, there were a couple of ones that maybe were better than others, but, a couple really nice knockouts, a couple, submissions. I mean, like, there was some really decent action going on the show this year. So, you got to keep it all in perspective. It's like, if you're watching for reality television, maybe you didn't get as much, but if you're watching for the fights, then, you got some good stuff and a good conclusion, at least in this one.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's move on then to the other finale fight of The Ultimate Fighter. This is Robert Valentine versus Ryan Loder. What a heartbreaker, man. All of what we just said about Myron and the storyline and all of the stuff that we just mentioned goes almost, in my heart at least, a little bit double, because Robert Valentine just, like, he was the standout guy from this season. And it really hurts to see him go down, especially the way that he went down against a very proficient wrestler in Ryan Loder.
Yeah, and so I'm watching it, and like I remember people were like, he got finished off some BS, situation. That's all I really knew about it. I didn't watch any clips, so I didn't see what happened. I heard it was like a crucifix thing, right? So I'm watching it, and it's really just like you said, it's heartbreaking. Like, I know that he's not getting up, and it took so long and so many elbows, and I'm sitting here, I'm like, please, you got this. You got this. I see his legs go up. I'm like, you're going to flip him. You're going to do it. And he's right back in it. And shout out to Ryan Loder. It really, listen, it pisses me off too, because after the fight, they're like, Ryan Loder has only been wrestling since 2022. And I'm like, you motherfucker. Like, you.
That true?
Bro, they said something like that. Maybe they said MMA. Maybe they said MMA, but I'm pretty sure they said wrestling and I was thinking to myself, like, this good old American wrestling, I fucking, like, why does it have to be godly right now? The dude who just walks in and ruins the poster child of tough right now. Like, the dude whose neighbor was watching in the crowd. Like, that's all that he had watching with him. And that was the dude who deserved to win. And Ryan Loder comes in and he can't even read what the judges are saying on the scorecards. Like, so wrong. It's crazy to me, man. Like, it was so painful to watch. Like, I actually watching it, dude, I'm telling you, so painful. Like this, the elbows, and he was blocking it too. At a point, he was stopping it, but it's like, you can't just like let them lay in the position like that and like let him keep getting hit. Like, it was bad.
So, all right. So just to take a step back for anybody who wasn't watching The Ultimate Fighter, Ryan Loder is a gentleman who has dyslexia. That is kind of his tale. His struggle in life. He apparently struggled pretty significantly with it in the way that he told it. He was also going up against at one point on the show, a Canadian who had the most heartbreaking story of all time. So it was kind of a sad juxtaposition where you had one guy who, legitimate. I'm not trying to downplay the significance of his affliction with dyslexia, but it was, man, I struggle with dyslexia versus a guy who lost his parents and his girlfriend. I mean, like, or at least the girlfriend. I know that one.
Girlfriend and teammate. It was
girlfriend and teammate. There you go. Oh, right. Theodoro. Yes, he was Theodoro. Yes, exactly. Yes, it was a teammate of Elias Theodoro. Thank you for reminding me. So yes, a Canadian fighter who lost another great fighter and a great man in Elias Theodoro, RIP to him for sure. And then also lost his girlfriend on top of that, the love of his life. So an odd juxtaposition there between the two with, Loder and his dyslexia diagnosis. But that was that side of the equation. Obviously a very technically proficient wrestler, as we saw. Robert Valentin, on the other hand, is essentially, we were saying, you calling him like the Nordic Yuri, which I think is pretty accurate. I mean, he's just a dude who, all he does is fight. He's got no family. He's got no girlfriend. He just likes his anime and he likes his fighting. When he had the call home that they do on the show, it was a call to a friend. That's all he had. It was kind of heartbreaking, and also something that I think that people, certain people can empathize with, you know what I mean? It's like, look, I'm not saying that I'm in the same position whatsoever, but I mean, I'm a single guy over here. I know what it's like to just dedicate your something all in. I mean, that's essentially what I'm doing with this channel. I got no time for anything else. So, I get it. It's like, you dedicate your entire life to something. So all of that backstory is to say it was pretty heartbreaking to see Robert Valentin go down the way that he did, especially also something to mention is that he got one extremely nice knockout in his first fight on the show, and then a crazy nice submission in his second fight on the show. So, I mean, the only note that I had based on all of that is that I don't understand why. I hate to say it, also for the fact that he was coaching on the show as well, which was a little bit strange, but I hate to say that based on all of that, but it seemed a little bit low fight IQ that he didn't anticipate the early wrestling in the second round. Bro, he wrestled the entire first round effectively as well. You were able to overcome that. You got to know that the wrestling is coming as well. I mean, and you have to have a better game plan to cut that off. That's all I can say about it.
I want to make a correction. He has been wrestling since 2009. But that was right. Anyway. MMA he started in October of 2021. So,
okay, all right, fair enough. But still, I mean, it's still very impressive to be able to do that in MMA in that time frame.
And I bring it back to this because I really had nothing more to go on Ryan Loder, but the saying that I already said, like good old American wrestling, and it sucks that that's a true fucking thing that can just happen. Like he can just wrestled that he almost got him with his own move too, which is actually that was kind of nice. But I will give Robert some props. He almost had him in a sub. There was two really good ones. Like, okay, they credit him for two too. Okay, good. There was two really good ones that maybe the fight could have ended, but ultimately 5 strikes to 63, man. I mean, God, I feel so bad that one. I know that I feel let down, but I know that he thinks he let himself down like so much worse. Like Yuri goes to the woods. This dude, we don't even know where this dude goes. That's the scary part. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I want to believe that he might still get a shot in the organization. We have seen that before. Khan might still even get a shot. I mean, we've
There's
seen
plenty of people on that roster that I think we'll see in the league.
Exactly. So, this might not be the last that we see of Robert Valentin, but I mean, at the same time, dude, like you gotta know that like that's coming, especially for a guy that is so front and center with it. I mean, like we said it, like, or watching the show, you know that Loder is going to wrestle pretty much the entire time. I mean, I think he had like I'm kind of surprised that there were 63 strikes total. I think a lot of those were probably ground strikes, with the elbows,
Those
of course.
elbows, he had
Yeah.
about 40 of them,
But
man.
yeah, for sure, it must have been because I mean, like there wasn't hardly anything on the feet. Like you got to know that he's going to the ground, and you have to be ready to whatever's coming your way to be able to overcome that. And that's just the levels to the game. So it does suck for Valentin. We'll see what happens if he does end up in the organization later on down the line. But for now, hey, Loader's your ultimate fighter, and a solid win on top of that. You can't discredit the man.
I will say also with Robert is like the sad part is the reality, he's a grappler. And that was his, time to shine. Like you're going against a wrestler. Now you're supposed to finish the fight on your back or, figure out a way to get a leg lock, something crazy. That's what you're supposed to do. Or show him that there's levels to the wrestling game, which there was. And he obviously was the higher. So
for sure. And yeah, and one just last note, we were talking a little bit about the finishing sequence there. High fight IQ move for Loader to figure to realize that he was in a position to get the crucifix, the top down crucifix, and capitalize on it. Because once he locked that in, you were right, man. I mean, it was heartbreaking to see Valentin doing everything that he could to try to get out of it, but he locked that in so nicely, and it was just elbow city after that. So again, Ryan Loader is your ultimate fighter, and you can't be mad at it.
Yeah, I listen. When the Americans win, you guys may think that I'm like mad or upset. Like I'm not. Like I do just, man, Switzerland would have had a cool guy on their way to the league. Like that dude really is a cool guy. Like he deserves some cool shit.
Exactly.
Some life-changing opportunities.
Chase Parton might have had a Swiss flag hanging behind him had he won that fight, but
honestly,
maybe for another
day.
That. Yeah, maybe another day, but it is what it is, and Ryan Loader is your ultimate fighter. So, all right. Moving on to Angela Hill versus Tabitha Ricci. Chase, I did something that I said I was never going to do again.
No, didn't.
I did, brother. I had gotten to the point. There were so many things that screwed up my parlays. GM3 being the first of them, but yeah, it was at the point where I was in desperation mode. I said, you know what, I'm gonna do it. Why the fuck did I do that? Why did I put money on Angela Hill, brother?
Yeah, I have no idea why. I mean, she's on the same card with Neil Magny, and like you should have known better. Like they're the same people, so. Tabitha Ricci came out and looked really fucking good in that first round. Like she's got some good pressure that she can apply.
Absolutely.
Like the not grappling, but like her clinch against the, like she can hold you against the cage. There was actually times even later in the fight when she started to gas out, Angela Hill was like pushing her into the cage clinch, and she was just able to just turn her around with like ease. Like it was just nothing to her. She's got good motor skills in the grappling,
for
department.
Sure.
And, she really is kind of nice. Like her striking is pretty solid. They actually did another fight where the striking was almost like identical. But yeah, no, Ricci is really good. She's super strong. Like, bro, she's got some muscles on her. Like, golly.
It's true. Yeah, for her size, the fighting women's strawweight, I mean, that, it's she's got a really good control of her muscular build. She uses her athleticism very, very well. And yeah, I mean, she was really dominating those first two rounds. That's basically what I think happened in this fight. The tale of this fight, in my opinion, was that Hill just got a little overwhelmed, to be perfectly honest. We were talking earlier on this stream about the Tong Wang fight, where saying that, like, women don't necessarily like overwhelm too early in fights. Like, I would say that this is a good example of the opposite of that. I think that Ricci came out really, really strong in those first two rounds. Hill just didn't have an answer for it. Finally, by the time that Ricci started to gas just a little bit, Hill also knew that she was down 2 rounds. She started to turn it up. So I did think that she took that third round, but by then it was too late. I mean, she needed a finish real bad, and it just, there was no way that was going to happen. So, yeah, Ricci, very, very athletic. Really a nice showing overall. The only thing that she needs to do is just be able to keep that pace up for all 3 rounds, but still got the win. So.
Yeah, she's super early in the career too. Like I feel like I've heard her name for a longer time than I've seen her fight, kind of deal.
Well,
But
I can
no, I
tell you
mean
one
she's
reason
not
why that's the case.
well. But either way, what is that reason? I don't know.
Well, I mean, a lot of people online are very, they're very transfixed with her backside, is what I've
No,
heard.
oh, I got you. I got you. Okay, okay, okay. Well, yeah. Either way, she's fine. Like she's good. She beat somebody who she needed to beat. 17-14 for Angela Hill. Just Jesus Christ. Like she's gonna get more fights, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if I ever tell you that I'm planning on putting money on Angela Hill again, I want you to come down to Florida and slap me in the face, okay? This is
Yeah.
I cannot do this again. I cannot let myself fall into the same trap. The Angela Hill trap is named that for a reason. It is named after her, and I still fell in. It's her. It's Anthony Smith. It's that we talk about those fighters where it's like anytime you put money on them, they lose. Anytime you don't, they win. I will be happy to just let that be the case. I'm not risking it again. Angela Hill, I just she has flecks of times where you think that she could be something greater and then just doesn't live up to that consistently, and that just is consistently her downfall. So 17-14 at, I think she's 40 years old, I believe, or somewhere around that range. Stay away from money on Angela Hill going forward. It's just, even if you win, you kind of are losing.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but yeah, nice performance for Tabitha Ricci, the baby shark. Did you ever see that picture that I had posted a while back of that promo picture of her with the photoshopped shark fin?
I don't think so.
Go to my Instagram, everybody. It's at Yama Show on Instagram. There is a promo picture that Tabitha Ricci herself was putting out there with her head photoshopped almost like the cone heads from SNL. Like she's the baby shark, so it was like a
Yeah.
pointy shark fin. Very, very strange, but that's just a little side note for you.
Yep, she is the baby shark. That is the last thing I can note.
AKA Tabitha Cakey, as nicknamed by my chat. That's the last thing I'm going to say
Nice.
about it. That's the last thing I'm going to say
Nice.
about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So anyway, all right, moving on to the main event. What we had said going into this Jared Cannonier versus Kyle Borralho fight was that this is Jared Cannonier's last stand. Sadly, I do believe that that is the case, but if it was going to be his last stand, it wasn't the worst last stand I have ever seen in my life. Jared Cannonier is a tough motherfucker, and I really don't think that he has too much to be ashamed of in this fight. It's just Kyle Borralho is that the changing of the guard is on, and he is the next, the new guard, and he's the new guy coming in with a lot of skill, and he got the better of Jared. It is what it is, but not the worst that I've ever seen of Jared, but sad, I think.
I think Jared is high enough in the rankings that we could see him have one or two, maybe, fun fights left against some good competition if he decides. I mean, he is old. But Kyle, yeah, dude, this dude's great. And he's actually somebody like if Izzy decides to stick around, that'd be cool.
Yeah, that was one that had been floated a decent amount online. People saying that would be the fight to make. My thing with it, and you're not wrong. I mean, Jared Cannonier can stick around if he wanted to. I mean,
yeah,
he took some heavy shots. I mean, he's been taking some damage lately in general. I think that Father Time is catching up with him in that regard for sure. But yeah, there's nothing to say that he can't stick around. Maybe he could be the next middleweight gatekeeper. I mean that's probably somewhat accurate. I would say that this fight certainly lends itself to that narrative. I mean, yeah, Kyle just, the crazy thing to me is that like going into the fifth round of this fight, I kind of had it too. I mean, like Jared was doing some decent work in this fight. Kyle just showed that, the youth and the agility. I mean, really everything that he was doing was correct. He was eating up that lead leg. I was so amazed that Cannonier was able to still stand on it, let alone throw it at times. I was like, bro, that must hurt you when you're throwing that kick. But I mean, like everything Kyle was doing, he was really putting on a great show, and then that ending sequence. It's amazing that it didn't get finished when he got that knockdown, because it looked like it probably should have been.
I think I'm glad you recognize that this was a very close fight. Like, this was super close, really hard to judge. Like, the fact that it was, 49-45, I don't know about that one, because there was round two, especially, I think you give Jared. So at least you give him one, right? Or round two. And then the fifth round you give to Kyle. He clearly stole it, of course. But then those other ones, like, it was kind of up for grabs. Like, I remember seeing the numbers, right? Because I had to, like, I was trying to, obviously the main card, I was trying to find the order of the fights or whatever. And I glanced over that Kyle, doubled his output or whatever. But during the fight, like, it didn't matter. The eye test is not telling you that somebody's like winning. Like, it was a close fucking fight. Like, it actually had to have a winner for it to be like decided. And that's what happened at the end, is Kyle really did become victorious, towards the end of the fight.
For sure. Yeah, and as much as it was like probably a stop worthy drop that, Cannonier suffered in that fifth round, I was somewhat glad that he was able to make it to the decision, just for the ability to say that he made it to the decision because of how close the fight was before that. Because, yeah, I mean, it was a pretty close fight. He was landing some heavy shots, man. He was, what I was saying about Josiane Nunes earlier, about being like shorter and stubbier and having to get inside to get her shots off because she's not great at range. Jared Cannonier is great at range. I mean, like, this is a guy that like utilizes, he's got long arms. He utilizes them very well. He judges distance extremely well. He's a proficient fighter. That's why the whole talk about the narrative being unfortunate. Like, his narrative is in that camp right now. I mean, like, it just sucks to see where everything has shaken out for him, because I like him as a fighter and he does some really nice work. That cut under Kyle's eye was fucking gnarly, dude. I mean, like, during the fight, the amount of Vaseline they had to dump into that thing to keep it fucking, keep him in the fight. I mean, I'm amazed they didn't call the doctor in at any point. I mean, like, it was pretty nasty. So, the damage showed what Cannonier was doing, but, Kaio's is next. What are you going to say?
Yeah, he'll be out for a few, I mean, just to get that stitched up, but we should see him back facing somebody at some pretty high level here soon.
Well, and that's the biggest thing, right? I mean, the middleweight division is now finally being broken up a little bit as far as the gridlock that it was in for a little while. You had the Dricus du Plessis, Sean Strickland, and Israel Adesanya top of the division, gridlock that was going on there. Obviously, now Izzy has lost to Dricus. Sean is going to get his shot again, for the rematch. After that, it's pretty much wide open at that point, depending on who wins that fight. Izzy's going to be dropping, decently down in competition, I would say. His ranking is going to drop, so I would assume that he's probably going to, get somebody a little bit lower in ranking. Kyle makes sense if they want to do that fight. I don't know if they're necessarily going to. I would think that they might. This is a speculation, of course, but they might end up doing the winner of Rob and Hamzat for him. Or they might do the loser of Rob and Hamzat for him, like, depending on what they want to do with the rest of the division. That's all speculation on my part. But the point is, it is nice to see that there is some motion in that division, because it had been tied up for a little while. It just sucks that Jared Cannonier is not part of that.
Yeah, true. Yeah, but I mean, like we said, changing of the guard. That's
exactly.
what has to happen.
The sport moves both very slowly and extremely quickly at times, and that's one where you saw a big shift. And a lot of what's going on right now is that. I mean, welterweight is probably going to have a couple more shakeups soon, I would say. I mean, granted, Bilal could be a dominant champion. That's highly possible with the proficiency in his wrestling, but they're saying Shavkat's next for him. That could be it. I mean, I've always said that Shavkat is next. I mean, I think that he is champion material. I think that he has a good shot against Bilal's style. So anyway, the point is that, we saw it with Ilya, we're seeing it with Bilal, we're seeing it in the divisions in general. We're in a transitional period in the sport right now. This lends itself to that as well. Cannonier drops off, Kaio takes over, and once again, I don't know how many times we can reiterate this, but the fucking fighting nerds, if you are not wise to keep an eye on those fighting nerds, you are not paying attention to this sport, because they are on top right now. They're on fire.
Yeah, 100%.
So
100%.
yeah, so there you go. That's UFC Fight Night Cannonier versus Borralho. Good card overall. I mean, I think that we got some interesting, pieces of information here. Obviously, the main event, what we just talked about there is a bit of a shakeup, but a couple of other decent little flecks of info coming in off of that. Obviously, Michael Morales. I had in my notes too that I'm gonna be seeing my Ecuadorian homie tomorrow. I got to make sure that he knows that Cheeto is not the guy anymore, bro. You need to keep an eye out for Michael Morales. That is your Ecuadorian to watch out for sure. And
Hell
then,
yeah.
yeah, we had Tong Wang also coming in, making a big statement there. So, good fight night. I mean, people like to talk shit about these Apex cards like there's not value in them, but it's like I mean, we had the Ultimate Fighter finales. I mean, there was some good stuff here.
Yeah, 100%. No, no doubt.
Absolutely. All right, so you want to take a quick look at some of the Dana White Contender Series fights that we had for these last 2 weeks?
Yeah, we can start out with week 1. That's actually best. We'll catch
I
up
mean,
on it.
we don't have to go through every single one all super in depth because I mean there was
Yeah.
a couple of really quick ones here, but there are some things to make some notes about, especially this
Ooh,
first
that
one here.
first fight. Holy shit, that first fight. I remember watching this one. Maybe I only saw the or no, wait, no, this is week 1. So I was watching this on the watch along because I think I hopped in your stream and I
Yeah,
said something about like this first fucking knockout because the dude from his camp
that's
was
I
in your thing.
definitely yeah I wanted to mention that. Shout out to AM who is a student of Kavanaugh. I forgot how did he say he pronounced the I think it's yeah, oh yeah, Lon, I think is just Lanier. But yeah, Kavanaugh here, Lanier Kavanaugh, fighting out of London, England. Yeah, shout out to AM, who was a student of his, who was hanging out watching the stream while we were doing the watch along, and what a nice knockout for this guy. I mean, good lord, the amount of time that Ho was down for, I mean, it was kind of scary. I thought that
Yeah.
there might have been some serious damage going on there. I was a little bit worried about the guy.
No, absolutely. He was definitely down for a minute, and it was. I remember watching, and I was like, "Oof!" Now that Kavanaugh has like taken, Ho's best shot, like Ho looks very worrisome. Like if he gets hit, it's gonna be bad. And like moments later, he got hit with a clean combo and just knocked
Yeah,
out.
it was. I mean, knocked out is just an understatement. If you have the ability to go back and watch that fight, you just count the length of time. We did that on the watch along. We had rewound and like we're just timing out how long he was down. I mean, it was a good solid maybe like 3.5 to 4 minutes. I mean, generally with a knockout, if you've watched the sport regularly, they get knocked out. A minute, 2 minutes is kind of even pushing it. They start to come back around. They sit up. This guy was out. I mean, like he was down for the count, fucking, just face up to the lights for a solid 4 minutes. So yeah, really, really heavy shot from Kavanaugh. Dropped him. Great performance. And shout out to that guy for getting the contract.
100%. And then the next one, oof, this was a crazy one too. This
Yeah.
knee, man.
Yeah, the knee,
Jesus.
absolutely. Another great one. This was yeah, Delgado versus Juarez. Yeah, I mean another great knockout finish, another great finish, and another contract awarded. So this was the first week of the show was a really good. Like they front loaded the show a little bit. The second week we'll talk about it in a bit. It wasn't bad, but like you were setting the bar really high with this one. Because this, I mean, like there was one fight that was not super great, but like other than that, I mean, like it was four really solid fights. This being one of them. Great finish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The next one, I knew Bruno Lopez was winning just by the name. Those are two GOAT names right there. And he came around and he did some good.
Yeah. This was a little bit more back and forth. I mean, there was it wasn't like super one sided for the entire fight. There was a little bit of opposition, but Shazniani is who he was fighting. And yeah, I mean, he ended up getting the job done, getting the finish as well. So another finish, another contract.
I actually don't. I think I remember this one. Maybe Dana wasn't too impressed, or maybe I wasn't too impressed with it because it was kind of too slobs, and by the end it was like some body shots. I think that was kind of the end towards. I'm not too sure if I
Yeah,
remember this one.
this one, yeah, this was the one that was a little bit of the snoozer out of all of them, but just because of how great the other ones were. It wasn't like a terrible fight, but
Yeah.
it wasn't great. Yeah, Meng versus Hamed. Yeah, Hamed was landing decently. Meng had gotten a couple of fouls as well. Like he had gotten a couple warnings. I don't think he ended up getting a point taken,
Oh, yeah,
but he
yeah,
might
yeah,
have
yeah.
gotten a point taken. If he did get a point taken, that actually that sounded somewhat familiar. He might have gotten a point taken at some point. And if he did, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, okay, no, I guess not because 30-27s. But I mean, if he didn't get the point taken, he was certainly in jeopardy of it. So I mean, like, I know for a fact I was saying on the watch along, if you get a point taken on the Contender Series, you might as well just pack it up right then. You don't even have to fight the third round, you know.
34-9, man. That is a crazy record to come into the Contender Series.
For sure. Yeah, that is wild. You know, racking up some wins in China. Who knows what that
Yeah.
competition was like. But yeah, you know, Hamed won the fight, but not, yeah, I mean, not deserving of a contract, and he did not get one. But this fight, though, Malik Abdul, or no, what's his first name? I forget off the top of my head.
Mansur.
Oh yeah, Abdul Malik. Yes, this is the guy. Hard name to commit to memory, but one worth doing because man, he was going up against Schultz over here, and this was a pretty competitive fight for a minute there. I mean, Schultz was like wrestle-ish heavy, if I'm not mistaken. I think that he wasn't. I mean, he landed more strikes overall, but Malik was really putting it on him towards the end there.
I want to make a point that Wes Schultz should not have even been on the Contender Series.
You don't
That
think so?
dude, that's no, absolutely not. That's like tough level competition right there. The way that he was throwing kicks so lackadaisically, like he was not intending to do anything with what he was doing. And I'm glad that he got knocked out because it was good to see.
Yeah, I think I'm mistaking him for the finale fight or the last fight of the second week.
Yeah,
Because yeah, now that I'm thinking back a little bit more, yeah, I think I'm remembering a little bit better now. Yeah, so Schultz. Okay, fair enough. I guess I'm a little hazy on the memory of this one, but I do remember Malik doing some really nice damage there. So another knockout and another contract awarded. So good shit from him. And actually, I think that I did make that point at the time. Is that like if you're going to have a more wrestle heavy, some would say a little bit more of a boring style, go to tough. Tough is where you want to be, you know, because
yeah,
you don't.
he was rocking the more drunken master kind of style, and it just
Mm,
wasn't fucking working, brother. Like he's not
yeah,
one of these physical, imposing figures that show up to tough. Like you'll see on the next week when we get to the main event, a dude that just shows up from fucking who knows where, working on power lines, and he's like the most jacked dude who can just wrestle and elbow you to death. Like it's really crazy.
yeah, for sure. So, you know, but the point stands. Like, if you are on the Contender Series, you need to be exciting. That's really the name of the game. Like, that's why the Contender Series is a national holiday here on the Yama channel, because these fights are where these guys are going out there to really show out, and you have to do that. Like, it's completely, it's necessary.
I'm
Larry
I'm
CTM, what's
under
up, brother?
I'm understanding like when they say, "Oh, the Contender Series is made for finishes." Like I'm getting it. I like understand where these people come from. Like they have a hot streak, you know, and like they just fought like last weekend. It's like, hey, can you make weight again? You got to fight this week, type of thing. Like they're ready to go, and it's like kill or be killed mentality, and I really like that about this thing.
Absolutely, yeah, and the amount of finishes that you get from it is exactly, you know, it represents that. It's reflective of that for sure. So that was week one. 4 contracts awarded out of 5. So good start. What are the picks for tomorrow? We don't really do predictions on Contender Series because these guys are so new to their careers. Honestly, I actually intentionally do not do any research going into the Contender Series because I want to judge them strictly off of their performances on the show.
I can agree with
So
that.
Yeah, so sorry about that, brother. I don't really have any picks for you necessarily. We're just going recapping the events that have already occurred so far. And this last week was not as great as the first week, but it wasn't bad.
It started off great.
Yeah,
Cody
Haddon.
Hayden,
Yeah,
dude, that guy. When they were showing the clips, he was like, I remember being like 6 years old, and I was like, I want to do Taekwondo. And then they show him doing clips of him like fucking this big, and he's doing karate kicks and punches and Taekwondo. I'm like, yo, this dude's a fucking G. Like he's been doing this his entire life. And then it showed right in the cage. He just did everything that you needed to see from somebody who's like, when you see potential, it's like, there it
yeah,
is.
absolutely, yeah. And that rear naked was real clean, man. I mean, he sunk that thing in, real
Dude,
nice and easy.
I love when they get like, so when people like when they're getting up and like the choke's coming and then like drag him back down, he was cooking him like right when he would just thought he had enough to slip away, right back down in the choke. Like it was perfect.
Yeah, yeah, really, really nice performance throughout the entire lead up to that fight. The only thing I can remember is Vitz King getting on him about his mustache. I do
They
kind
both
of
had him.
Yeah, his was certainly worse. I do think that like I am no one to talk because I have the light patches on the side as well. But you might want to consider going mustacheless. Just putting that out there,
Yeah.
brother. And if we're gonna see you in the future, maybe without the stash is the better way to go. But another heavy contender coming out of Australia, a place that turns out so many great fighters. So obviously he's in good company down there. Good shit.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on though, Torres Finney versus Rouston over here. Yeah, man, this Torres Finney guy, dude, he's an interesting guy to watch.
I feel bad because like he did win twice, right? And like
Yes,
normally it's like, you win on the contender series, okay. You win twice on the contender series. Now it's like pity contract area. I know Dana just wants good, exciting fighters. But like this guy is like he's got a big fan base for some reason. Like people really enjoy just the short, small, stocky dude. But he really is just not. I don't think he's going to be able to compete anywhere in the UFC. It's like it really is one of those size, disparity things. Like he's really fucking short and he's too fucking buff for fucking where he's at. Like he can pick people up and he can slam them, but like, bro, what Larry's saying right now, yeah, Dana was right, man. I think once I started thinking to myself, I'm like, there's just no way. Like decimated is harsh for fucking middleweight. But then, I'm going down the list and I'm like, well, Jack Hermanson probably would get over. And then like, okay, and then this guy, and then this guy, and it's like, yeah, maybe he's kind of right because this guy's not that impressive, and he's not a finisher. It,
well,
it seems.
that was going to be my point. Is that look, all the size is obviously a huge factor. I mean, he is very, very, very tiny. I mean, that's just there's no two ways about it. However, he was able to pick up and slam his opponent several times. That was impressive. However, on top of that, if you're going to do that, you have to get to the next position. It's necessary. I mean, like, because look, you've got Chris Barnett, who is a tiny heavyweight, get able to somehow get the leg up and head kick knockout a motherfucker. That's
Yeah.
impressive. He's in the organization, so it's not completely impossible. It's not like if he had gone out there and fucking crushed this guy, like if he had gotten those pickups and those slams and then just went in and swarmed him, it would be a completely different conversation. But you have to have the next position in mind. Like you can't control it. Again, if you want to fight like the way that Torres Finney was fighting, you go to tough. Yeah, I mean, like he might still have problems on tough, but at least it's not going to be like it is on the Dana White Contender Series. If you have to fucking show out, 2 times he's on the show, 2 times he wins, 2 times he does not get a contract. It speaks for itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I felt so bad because at the end, like, why after they tell him they don't get a contract, do they not walk him to a different room? Why do they just let him sit there and
He looks
everybody else
so
gets a
mad.
contract? And then everybody's walking by, give him a handshake, and he's like, I'm just going back to sitting in his fucking. And like, I felt horrible because everybody got a contract. Everybody
It's
got a contract
true.
but him. So
Yeah, kind of amazingly too. We'll talk about the next fight there, but yeah, I mean, look, Dana told him to go out there and fight 3 times this year, and then maybe he'd get a third shot at the Contender Series. It's like, bro, you gotta know that, like, if you're going to that show, especially after already being on the show, you know what Dana wants to see. Like, if you've got, look, you're a buff little dude. I mean, that's what we've talked about that too. I mean, he's a tiny guy, but he is a tank. You got to be some power in those hands, right? I mean, throw your hands a little bit more.
one, his striking is not that great.
Yeah.
And two, I think it's kind of funny that Dana, like, okay, so Dana originally said, go out, get some experience, and then come back. Why did you let him come back with no experience? Like, why didn't, like, when he came up and said, like, okay, Torres Finney, Contender Series season, whatever. And he was like, yeah, I'm 6-0 now. And they're like, weren't you 5-0 last year? Like, why didn't they give him the look? Like, brother, the boss man, he said you got to do some more work. Like, what is one fight doing? But yeah, he got cooked by Dana. Dana was very harsh.
It's
Very,
true. I
very
mean,
harsh,
but
he's real.
harsh but accurate. Yeah. I mean, I honestly, I don't disagree with anything that he said. I mean, 9-0, 2 times on the show, and not getting contracts for a reason. In fact, what Larry in the chat is saying is that he's got the perfect build to change levels and not get subbed. He also has the perfect build to decimate bodies. Like, go and land some body shots, bro. If you can't get up to the head, if the range is an issue there, like, there's a lot of different things that he could have done that he didn't do. That, I think, is the biggest thing. I don't think that the size, I mean, the size obviously is a factor. It can't not be. But I think the biggest problem was that he didn't advance his positions when he had the control, and he didn't do any kind of effective striking, as you were saying. His striking's not great. So it's like, dude, all of those things add up to what you get. I can't say that Dana's wrong in not giving him the contract. And if he lets him back a third time in the Contender Series, that would be wild. That would be fucking crazy. This guy comes back, he's 12-0, and he's on the Contender Series again.
He's three-peating. Like, that is going to be crazy. No, but like we talk about, PFL and Bellator, it's like, you hate to say that they should be the people who have these scraps, the scrap fighters, but it's like, Torres Finney, I'm sure you can have a good career somewhere, but like,
brother,
I don't think it's here, man. I don't think it's here.
Muhammad Mokayev just signed a nice contract with Brave. You can go over there and hang out with him.
Like, yeah, like, seriously. Because, I mean, 9-0, it really does suck. I know we want to move on past it. It really does suck that an undefeated fighter, 9-0, that you're just like, that we really have to accept that he's just not that good, not good enough. Because we know what's going to happen. Like, do we really want him to, like, be on this righteous path to prove to Dana White that he belongs in the UFC? He gets in on his debut and gets his ass whooped. Like, do we really want to see that? Like, I don't. Dana's saving us. Dana's saving him too. Like, in reality,
it's true. And that is a good point in the grand scheme of things, right? I mean, it's like, what happens if he does get a contract? It's like, okay, great, you have a contract now, and you go up against these guys in the organization. We always talk about how the level jump that you have in the UFC, no matter who you're fighting, really, it's kind of interesting in that way. He could be fighting a guy that's not like super experienced in the UFC, but if he's been in the organization for a fight or two, he's already leagues ahead just by that fact alone. So it's like, if he gets the contract, then what? You know what I mean? It's like, it's a nice story. He's a little bit of an underdog. He's all the factors that we talked about play into it, yada yada, undefeated, all of that stuff. It goes out the fucking window when you get into the actual organization proper. So I think it's the right choice. Sad to say. I think that Larry's making some good points too. That he should, there are technical elements that he could improve on, that if he does get a third shot, which would be fucking insane, but if he gets a third shot, come back with those improvements. I mean, that's the only way you're going to get it. And I mean, if not, dude, yeah, go explore other options. PFL's looking for
the only thing that I can see him getting, and Dana White does this because I'm pretty sure that's how Kevin Holland got his opportunity. Like, he didn't get a contract right away, I don't think, but maybe he did. And then Dana, called him up. He was like, "We'll get that guy. We'll get that guy to go face, a young killer, Thiago Santos." Torres Finney could find himself in an opportunity. Dana White might call him up and like, "Yo, we got this middleweight. His name's Hamzat Shemaev, you ready to fight him? Like, let me know. It's tomorrow, kind of deal.
Right.
Like, and
Yeah, and that does happen. I mean, there have been plenty of times where there have been fighters. Actually, there was that female fighter. I'm forgetting her name, but she lost her Contender Series fight and ended up getting a fight in the organization. So, I mean, it's not impossible that we see him get a fight. It's really all I'm saying is it's just what happens when he does get that, and that's just really what it's going to be.
And yeah, so good thing for Torres Finney. He's a very hopeful dude. I'm sure he'll be waiting for that call.
Keep your chin up, brother. As high up as it'll go.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So, Cortavius Ramius, believe is how you pronounce that, versus what was his first name? Is it Michael Imperato?
Yes.
Yes, Michael Imperato. I was having trouble pronouncing both of these names throughout the entire fight. Cortavius, man, this dude, another guy who is coming back for a second fight. What's up?
Let me interrupt you first.
Please, go ahead.
Have to. Please tell me you watched the introduction video for the Michael Imperato dude.
I mean, I was catching flecks of it. What was the standout there?
I can't tell you exactly what it was, but he was like, a couple years ago, I made this stupid decision, and I called this guy a slur, man, and I called him a slur. And I did it, and I feel really bad about it.
Did he?
And like I've been trying to change my life ever since then. It was so
no way,
bro, dude. It was like he was like, man, I saw this guy on the street, and I saw him with his boyfriend, and I called him a slur.
Oh my!
And I really did, man, and I meant it. And I've been trying to change my life ever since. I've been trying, and it's funny because I'm looking at him. And I'm like, you look just like the type of dude that would say some shit like that and feel bad about it. Like, it was so fucking funny. Like,
oh, I'm gonna have to go back and watch that.
My family's been rooting for me. They've been in my corner ever since that big moment that changed my life. When I just let it slip, man, and I just really did it. Like, it was so funny. I'm telling you, it was.
Well, funny. And he's from Canada. In Canada, he can freaking get in a lot of trouble for that. That's a big thing over there. You can't be saying shit like that. Well, all right, so fair enough. I did not see all of that. Wow. I guess I got to pay more attention to the lead up stuff.
Yeah. See, here we go. Look, Larry. Yep, racist piece of shit. Yep. See.
All right. Yeah. I mean, all right, a racist and a couple other negatives on top of it, and also a loser of this fight. So I guess all of that worked out. But yeah, I mean, as far as the actual fight, it's all that stuff aside, as far as the fight itself, Ramius is I mean, like, he's sort of a wild stallion kind of fighter, I would say. I mean, like, he's sort of, I mean, like, he's all over the place with the style that he has. I mean, like, he was getting some effective striking going. He moves pretty decently. Like, he's nimble, but like at the same time, I mean, I think Dana even had said that he had some opportunities that like he didn't capitalize on, with just like a fight IQ kind of thing. Fair enough for that. I mean, even without that being the main criticism, like, I just thought that he was a little bit wild, and Larry in the chat was saying that he didn't think that he deserved a contract. I would kind of agree with that. I didn't think that was a contract-worthy performance. Not necessarily mad that he got it, but at the same time, it's just, it was just like, there are definitely some, we talk about the fundamentals a lot. That's a guy that needs to drill the fundamentals a little bit better.
Yeah, I remember there was a couple subs that I felt like, damn, it would have been nice if he would have got those. And I think, showing the potential that he would be able to get people in positions, and he would go for them on the feet, nothing too out of the ordinary, but getting a contract, I was on the edge. I was thinking Dana, he always does build up suspense, with his contract talk, but this one I think was maybe, if you look at if you look at the skill level, right, between this fight and the next one, I think this contract was deserved for the skill that they just acquired. But you look at the division of the heavyweight that just got a knockout, it's like, well, we need a heavyweight. Like, but bantamweight, it's like, this guy's not really somebody I would give a contract to, a bantamweight kind of thing. But
yeah,
if you exclude that, he was fine, just nothing out of the ordinary, crazy kind of deal.
Yeah, he's another guy that like, based on that performance, at least, I don't remember his first fight on the Contender Series, but based on that performance, I I would definitely see him losing his initial fight in the organization. There's potential for him to, get farther after that, but I wouldn't like he didn't inspire a ton of confidence if he's going up against a guy who's already been in the UFC for a while.
He lost to Roman Tavares.
Ah,
He was the
Ramon
reason.
Tavares. There you go. Yes, I
Yep.
actually, I had that in my script about Ramon Tavares. You can check that out on the channel. The drive-by nearly murder of Ramon Tavares. Crazy situation. Give that video a watch actually, because that needs more views. For some reason, the algorithm's suppressing that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. That was his fight, and Ramon showing that he's doing decent. I would guess. I mean, he did lose that fight to Sade, but won the rematch. So he was supposed to fight.
I mean,
not
hey,
too long ago.
got his rematch. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, he had to beat Cortavius. He knocked him out, and that's what got him his contract, and then got the rematch in the debut. So it just shows. I mean, you just got to play your cards right. And I know we're ragging maybe Cortavius don't deserve no contract, this and that, but like, you can change our minds really quickly with one good performance.
We always say it. Exactly. All you got to do is prove it. That's it. It comes down to the performance at the end of the day above all. So yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with him. I'm not mad at it. Like, I'm not like, wow, that guy fucking sucks. He doesn't deserve it at all. But like, we just got to see, because I could definitely see him being like, I actually had heard a stat. I think it was Minty Betts was saying that on the broadcast about how, like, I forgot what the exact number is, but I think it was somewhere in like the high 50% of fighters lose their first fight coming in the organization. Something along those lines. So, I mean, like, I would see him probably falling in that camp, but that's not to say that there's not better after that for him. We'll see.
Yeah.
All right, so Kuniev versus Kunha.
Yeah, is that how you say him? Because we were like the broadcasting and me were so confused on all it was Kunev and then Kuna. Like I couldn't even tell the difference who the fuck they were talking about.
Yeah, I believe that's it. I mean, that's what I'm going with. I think Kuniev is or Kuniev is how you pronounce him at least.
But either way, nothing too crazy. Like, again, it's a heavyweight, so you got to take what you can get. Like, it's like, oh, this dude's blah 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 blah. So he knocked him out with 1 second left. God damn, like, whatever. But this fight wasn't really like, I wouldn't have gave this dude a contract if it was any other weight class but a heavyweight. But obviously, it would have been a different fucking fighter. Like, so it's just, you need heavyweights at any time.
Well, and Larry's making actually a pretty salient point in the chat here. Kuniev did beat Renan Ferreira, who's fighting Francis Ngannou coming up. Renan Ferreira obviously has gone on to a much more successful career after that fight for sure. But how petty Dana is, and I could absolutely see that being the reason. I don't even think that's a very hot take. I mean, Dana wants to stick it to Francis at any opportunity that he can. I mean, it's just over and over again, just trying to, to make it so that Francis loses in little ways here and there if he can. So yeah, I don't see, I mean, I think that even if he hadn't won, even if he hadn't gotten the knockout, I bet you Dana was in the back being like, I really hope this guy wins,
Yeah.
So, he might have still gotten the contract even if he didn't really like deserve one. I mean, got the knockout, whatever. What can you say to that? It's I guess he deserved it because of that. But yeah, I think that Larry's spitting some facts in the chat.
This fight here, holy shit!
This was the fight that made it all worth it.
Yeah, and Pat Pitlick. This guy, I don't know what style like of fighting this dude does. Like, it is weird. Like, it's only clinch. It is only clinch, reach for the head, can't break his grip, knees, elbows. That's it. That's the game, and it works. And even Dana said, like, we can talk about how we don't like how it looks or like how does it work, but like when it gets results, like you can only ask so many questions. And we talk about people, it's like, what is next for him and what's their ceiling? This dude's kind of old, but he's one of those dudes that you can throw in there real quick against, like, RoboCop type of deal. Like, he's just going to go in there and fight, like, and he may get the shit beat out of him, and he may pull off a fucking crazy upset.
Yeah, so this is Gustafsson versus Pitlick. I want to say that Pitlick, he's a dude that came off of Dana White's Looking for a Fight, and, had shown out there. he was really trying his hardest. I got to give the guy some credit because he was getting overwhelmed pretty early in this fight, even though he really was making a solid concerted effort. So, it wasn't like for lack of trying that he lost this fight. However, Gustafsson, like you said, the clinch heavy style, but effective striking in the close range. What Felder had said at one point, talking about the elbows in close. I was watching with Vitzking on the watch along. Vitzking was like, it wasn't even in close range because of how he swung it. And I was like, that's actually a really good point. More people can take some notes from this guy with the way that he was effectively landing. Because if you're in a dominant position in the clinch to begin with, and you're pulling back on that and you have the distance to be able to land that, I mean, bro, like it was super effective. So fucking elbows and knees. Head, shoulders, knees, and toes over here. I mean, this guy was doing everything right in close range. I loved it. I mean, Dana can say whatever he wants about how it looks, this and that. I was personally really happy with it, and I hope that people take some notes from his style because when you have that, when you're in that distance and land like that, you can have fight-ending sequences, where otherwise you would not. So I was really happy with it.
Yeah, no, 100%. Well-deserved contract, even for the age. And even though 32 isn't like crazy, I get what the point is. It's like, what do you do after you win? It's like, then you're getting up, like you win once or twice. Now you're getting up in age kind of deal. You got to think about the future that you're signing to. Like, you can't just sign everybody to a one-fight deal. This is, you got to build a roster here.
For sure. Yeah. And I mean, it could be the next Randy Couture, man. I'm waiting for the next old guy to show out, and be able to stick around for a while. Obviously, that era of the sport is long past, but there's got to be somebody, man. There's got to be some dude who can break the 34 curse,
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, so far so good on the Contender Series. I a couple contracts might be a little bit questionable, but nothing that's so egregious that it's making any kind of crazy noise. So I've been pretty happy with it. I guess I'm gonna have to go back and watch some of Gustafsson's other fights if Larry's talking him up. Larry must be following some of these other organizations outside these lower promotions that I'd be watching more of if I had any free time whatsoever. That's why I'm like so on the fence about getting Fight Pass, because I'm like, if I get Fight Pass, bro, it's just I'm never gonna do anything else. It's gonna be just all fights all the time, and like I gotta eat at some point. Yeah, so not bad. Contender Series resumes again tomorrow. Are you gonna be? Oh, you're not gonna be doing live for Contender Series, right?
I just realized I work 12 to 8 tomorrow, so I'm going to get off and probably start the thing like an hour later. So I'll do it at like 9 probably, and then we'll rewatch them. So
okay, so there you go. If you want to check out Chase Parton on his solo watch along, you can do that. We will be, myself and the Vitz King, right here on the Yama channel doing a watch along for the Contender Series starting at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. That is youtube.com/@YamaShow. There is a new video out on the channel currently about UFC 305 and a couple other things. The most latest Yama episode has been released a couple days ago. Check that out if you haven't seen it. We will be back on, well, we won't be back this Saturday, actually. There are no fights this Saturday. That's always a sad thing now because we're so used to every weekend having fights. So we're very spoiled at this point, but at least we have the Contender Series. So nothing on Saturday, but who knows? I mean, I'll talk to Vitz King. We might do some kind of stream of something on Saturday. So keep an eye out for the social media. That's @YamaShow on Instagram and Twitter. You can also follow on Kick, Twitch, and Trovo, aside from YouTube. And Chase Parton, I know that you can let everybody know where they can find you, brother.
We will be doing watch-alongs on Saturdays when there's fights, of course, at youtube.com/@CPSmalls. And Twitter, you can find me at Creative Parton, Partin, and that's where we be getting busy. So
that's right. Make sure that you follow my boy for sure. We will be back next Monday. We'll be talking about next week's fights on Monday, and doing our thing, right? That should be should still be good. So yeah, so next Monday we'll be back for this. Catch us on a watch along. Make sure that you're subscribed to the channels, and we will see you in the next stream, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. See you tomorrow for the fights, and until then, fight on.
Cannonier.